Make your day richer than it was before. Got some good times knocking upon your front door.
Welcome, everyone, to Make Your Day Richer. I'm your host, Richard Wilmore. We've got Father's Day coming up this weekend, and I think it's sometimes the only day of the year that fathers might share some emotion, or you could share emotion to your father. And I wanted to bring our guest on today, Jason Tuttle, to talk about emotions in men and the importance of that in the group and the community that he's created in order for people who are grieving to share. So, Jason, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
Now, you lost your son 2 years ago, right?
That is correct. I lost my son on January 28th of 2022.
And I feel like from that moment, you have set out to create a community and to bring people together, especially men, to have a space that they can talk about grief and all the emotions that go along with being human.
Certainly. Um, the initial reason for creating the page Letters to Zachary was I'm a researcher. So when everything happened with my son, I got onto social media and I got onto Facebook. And as we all know, there's a group for everything on Facebook. And so the problem I was running into was I could get into grief groups, but as we all know in these emotion style groups, 95% women, about 5% men. And of that 5%, you might have half a percentage that actually is in there somewhat regular. And so even though I knew I wasn't going to find a man that had experienced exactly what I did, I wanted to find at least a man that experienced at least child loss per se.
Mm.
And so I was having a really hard time finding that. And so I just got to a point where I thought instead of getting upset or complaining about it, I need to do something about it. And that's kind of how Letters to Zachary came about.
Wow. Were you a an emotional, like lovey father before this had happened, where emotions were allowed to be expressed, or was that something that you weren't really tapped into yet?
Honestly, I was a little bit of both. On the home front, very much loving, very outwardly affectionate to my kids because both of my kids have medical special needs and they're nonverbal amongst other things. And so I wanted to be kind of that visual presence to them as they were growing up, whereas they may not get the other senses, they could get the outward expression of
Mm.
emotion and all of that relating to that. But on the outside world, outside of the walls of my house, yeah, I'm pretty reserved and quiet and unto myself.
How quickly? I mean, you have to go through that once. I mean, your son was so young when he
Yes.
died. What's that process like to get to a point where you're able to even talk about it, let alone talk about it publicly like you have?
Um, most of us in the grieving community, if it had been, say, the first 6 months, even through that first year, it would have been difficult. My scenario was a little different, was not to get into a whole lot of detail about it, but I was the one that took him up to the hospital on that day. I was in the
Mhm.
ER room as they were working on him. I was there when he was pronounced. So I have kind of that side of it, seeing that whole process of end of life and then kind of rolling into the next thing. So it took me, when we first got home, it probably took me the first 6 months where I wasn't at least very emotional almost every day. And then time may not heal all wounds, but what time does is it instead of the waves hitting frequently, the time in which the waves kind of spread out a little farther and a little farther and a little farther. So I was seeing a counselor as well as that time, and I probably saw the counselor and put this idea on hold for probably a year and a half before I ever did anything about
Oh,
it.
wow. Yeah, and the Facebook group Letters to Zachary,
Mhm.
um, is not even a year old. It has, like, 1,000 followers already. What are you hearing from people who are joining that group?
Um, well, I'm kind of in the stage right now, which is very happy for me, where I'm starting to hear people that my page has been recommended by someone,
Mm,
and so which that's wonderful to me. But I'm the initial form of content was in letter form, hence letters to Zachary. But I also write in prose form and meme form and commentary form. And I mean, there's video form, at least on one of my other associated pages with it. But I tend to write right in the moment. I'm very unfiltered, raw. I don't want to say in your face, but some people might take it that way. Cause like some of those letters, when I wrote them in the moment, it was, if I felt like it needed to be expletive laden because that's how I was feeling, that's how I wrote it.
yeah.
And so,
Word vomit is what I call it.
certainly,
Yeah.
so when, like, after the first couple that I posted, the immediate response I got was big. And then I had women coming to me saying, I have never told anybody like my deepest, darkest emotion relating to the loss of my son or my daughter, and you have hit the nail on the head, word for word. And, and I would come back and say, well, I appreciate it. This is kind of inspired by my son, and I'm glad I can write something that resonates with you. So that was kind of the initial kind of ball rolling moment where I thought, maybe I have something here.
And how has it been for you personally to share everything so publicly and to have that kind of love coming back to you like you have?
Well, I will say in the beginning, it was a little nerve wracking just because even though I knew what I was feeling, we all know what some people on the internet are. And as much as
Mhm.
good as you might be doing, you're always going to have naysayers. But in 8 months, I think may have had one or two naysayer at this point that may or may not have liked my stance on something. But it's been, if I had have started off with getting kind of a negative response, I may not even be to this point talking to you. But because I got such the positive, just big response from the beginning, that's what got everything rolling.
Mm. And you mentioned that you have women coming up to you. Your group and the Facebook group, Letters
Mhm.
to Zachary, is not just for men. I know women are in there. And why was that important to you to open it up to anybody who needs to find it?
Um, I opened it up to women pretty soon, excuse me, after I started doing it because I was getting comments from wives and girlfriends and significant others that would say, well, my husband and I lost our child X number of months ago or a year ago. He's not opening up. What do I need to do? And so the way my brain operates, I thought, well, I need to come up with some at least pointers or some hints at things that women can do to at least create a situation to where it will give the man the opportunity to open up. He may not always open up, but at least it makes it favorable for it. And
Mm.
so if I can do that and get them to get their husbands open up on the other end, they may then come to the page, at least from just kind of the whole promoting it kind of side of things. They could come to the page and then see other things that I'm doing.
Yeah, you're doing such great work. If there are people who are watching or listening to this, and especially men who, my dad is one of them, they're like
Mhm.
no emotion. What
Yep.
what would you say to them to even like start cracking that egg of giving a little bit and how that can change them?
Well, the irony of the male gender is we're a gender that does not like being told what to do,
Mm,
period. Most of it, well, 99% of us. And so the irony of all of that is we don't like being told what to do, but we let society go, hey, you're not supposed to express your emotion. You need to hold it in. You need to. I'm at least old enough of a generation where we rub some dirt on it and walk it off, or tape it up and walk it off, or are you hurt or are you injured kind of ideology. And so I would tell men it's okay to open up. Now, should you go to another man and like cry on his shoulder? I mean, no, that's not what I'm saying at all. But we've got to be able to have a place to where we can get it out, because the leading causes of like unaliving men in this country are stress related, heart issues, a lot of emotionally related mental issues are the top like 3 causes. And my response to them is, don't make a permanent decision for a kind of a temporary situation.
Mm.
And I'm also of the mindset that, like a lot of men, well, I don't want to be the first one to do it. If I see someone else do it, then yeah, I'll look into it and do it. But as for me creating this page, I was just like, well, somebody's got to be the first. Someone has. And so that's why I was just like, well, I'll be the example. I'll take on the positive and the negative for what people may or may not say.
Yeah. What do
So
you
that's kind of where it was. In the most simplistic form, it's, I'm an example. I'm a man. I'm of kind of that age. I'm Gen X, so kind of that age where men don't really want to open up. I'm saying, hey, it's okay to open up. It's not going to be held against you.
Yeah. Yeah. What are you hoping that kind of the legacy behind the Facebook group is? Like, what are you hoping it turns into? It's so new.
Um, we know with one of the collaborators I've dealt with recently, I jokingly said that this is the start of my grief empire, is what it is. But that, I mean, that's ultimately kind of the simplistic way to look at it. I'm building the foundation to hopefully open up to bigger things and be able to reach more people. And it's more, as much as I may like the follows and the notoriety that comes along with it, it's more about helping people to see these situations and how to correctly kind of deal with them. And if I can do that with just a small number of people, then all of this was a success. If it becomes more, great, that's icing on top of the cake. But the goal is to be able to help women to see and men to open up.
Outside of the Facebook group that we'll put in the comments here at the end of the show, it's
Mhm.
called Letters to Zachary. Where else can people connect with you?
Well, Letters to Zachary is my main page. My second one is TikTok. It's still Letters to Zachary, but instead of TO, it's the number 2 on there. And I typically do short form videos on TikTok that are either grief questions or grief related topics. And when like people respond to me on those, I'll do videos responding back to them to kind of answer their questions. And so typically those videos are usually about 5 minutes or less. I try to keep them short on there. I mean, I'm also on Instagram, TikTok, and I even have a YouTube channel. Although my YouTube channel, I need to start working on a little more because I don't have a ton of videos on there.
We'll fix that. We'll send you this video. It can be your first.
Hmm.
Thank you so much for being here, for
Thank
opening
you.
up this conversation and giving people the space to grieve openly and honestly. I really appreciate what you're doing.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I do appreciate being on.
Jason Tuttle, everyone. Oh, side note, just
Hmm.
completely random. This morning I was going through my Facebook messages and there was a post that I had for how many years ago that how many years ago, found a turtle on the middle of the road and it said that I had named him Mr. Tuttle. Here you are today.
Well, then it was meant to be.
It was reincarnated, I think, as
Mhm.
you. So, Jason Tuttle, make sure you go to Letters to Zachary. We'll put the Facebook page in the comments and support him. Will you? We'll be right back after this, everyone. It's premiere week on Make Your Day Richer with Richard Wilmore, featuring Ashley and Becky, the hosts of the podcast Two Girls with Cancer. Self-esteem regime author Clarissa Burt, grief blogger Jason Tuttle, the LinkedIn cheerleader Aquacant, weekdays at 10 a.m. Eastern starting June 10th. Thank you very much, Jason, for being here. Thank you for watching, for listening. We have one day left in premiere week, and that's tomorrow with the Aquacant. So I hope you tune in then. We'll see you tomorrow, everyone. I love you. Goodbye.